Welcome. So in this project we will create a geolocator aware Flutter application using clean architecture with Riverpod. So in this project we will explore how to architect and implement a Flutter app that seamlessly fetches user location, and using the framework, specifically the clean architecture with Riverpod. So by following clean architecture principles and leveraging the Riverpod for state management, we will create a modular, scalable and efficient solution for this project, GeoLocator. And we will start with an introduction to the clean architecture with Riverpod. Each and everything will be in detailed explanation and highlighting their significance in organizing Flutter apps and managing state. And then we will dive into the three main specific layers of a clean architecture with Riverpod, which will be the domain, data and presentation. And we will be working also on the providers. So we will specifically explain their respective roles and contribution to a well-structured Flutter application. So in this project you guys will learn a comprehensive understanding of building geolocator aware apps, which will be in a Flutter clean architecture with Riverpod. So let's get started over here. You guys can see the beautiful decoration for the app bar and also for the body. We will implement that successfully in this project, and in here you guys can see the app bar in a beautiful manner, geolocator. And there we go with our icon image for the geolocator application over here. And then down below you guys can see the button. We will create this beautiful button, elevated button, which will say get current location. So whenever the user will tap on that, it will just get the current location of the user, or let's say of this specific device. The latitude and longitude coordinates will be right here, and you guys can see it's now in gray color. So whenever I will tap on this specific button, it will get the coordinates, which will be the latitude and longitude, and then this latitude and longitude will be in green color with their specific coordinates. So let's go ahead and tap on that. There we go. You guys can see the coordinates over here, the latitude and the longitude. So you guys will just learn about that, how we will create this application geolocator right in the clean architecture with Riverpod, and each and everything will be in detail explanation. So see you in the project. So let's create a new Flutter project. Click in here and make sure in here select the SDK path over here, and then make sure to select Flutter in here. It's already selected in my case. Now what I'll do, I'll just go to where is the next, tap on that in here. Now we will just give the name to the project in here. So as you guys know, we will be working right in the clean architecture with Riverpod, and we will create the geolocator in this specific architecture. So in here I'll say clean, instead of space we will give the underscore. Make sure to just give the name in specific manner. Then we'll say architecture over here, instead of space we will give underscore. You guys can see that over here, and then we'll say Riverpod over here, and then we'll say geolocator. All just fine. In here we will be working with the Android and iOS platforms, so we will just uncheck the remaining ones over here. You guys can see that. Now we are left with the Android and iOS. You guys can see that. Now simply come here and click on this create. This is gonna just create a project for us. This will take a while, just wait. There we go. with the Android Studio. Now in here you guys can see that. Simply close that from here, and the next thing that we will just close is going to be that readme. Close that from here. You guys can see for now the main dot, and in my case over here you guys can see right at top on the left side the project is already selected, so you can choose that from here. In my case it's already selected. Now we will go to the lib. You guys can see we are now on the main dot. So the first thing that we will do, I'll just remove those command lines from here. You guys can see that, and you guys can see that classes. Simply just wrap that from here, and we will delete that. We don't need this. For now on, I'll just remove that from here, and we will have the scaffold widget over here. For now, you guys can see that. Later on, we will just modify that. And now we will just give the title over here to our project. We'll say clean architecture over here. You guys can see that with the Riverpod, and it's gonna be our GeoLocator. We will implement that right in the clean architecture with the Riverpod. Now the next thing that we will do, we will just go towards the postpack.yaml, and we will add some dependencies above the Cupertino icons or below it on here. You guys can see that. Now open your browser and search for pub.dev. So here am I right in the Google, you guys can see, and over here you guys can see that pub.dev. Simply search for that. From there we will just get some dependencies as I told you already, and we will just add it in our project. So in here pub.dev, click upon that .packages over here. Now the first dependencies that we're going to simply search for is going to be the GeoLocator. You guys can see that over here. Now you guys can see that GeoLocator right on top. GeoLocation plugin for Flutter. This plugin provided cross-platform iOS and Android API for generic location, GPS, etc. function over here. So we will just use that for this specific generic location. Okay, so simply just click upon that, and I have already just read that. You can have a look over here, read it if you guys want to learn about more about the GeoLocator. So in here we will go towards directly to the installing. From here you guys can see that dependencies over here. Simply just copy that from here, Control C, and you guys can even copy that from here. Okay, now go to the Android Studio, and right in here below the Cupertino icons over here you will just paste it. You guys can see that. Now go back to the pub.dev, back again in here, and this time we'll just search for here Flutter Riverpod. If you guys didn't see that from here, we can simply just tap on that pub.dev, and it's going to be here now, more visible. And in here we'll say Flutter. There we go. Investigation Flutter Riverpod. You guys can see that. Right on top you guys can see the Flutter Riverpod, and you guys can have a look over here. It's a reactive caching and data binding framework. Riverpod basically just makes working with the asynchronous code a breeze. So that's all the working of a Riverpod, and I have already told you about that. So basically that Flutter Riverpod is the state management library for Flutter application. Is just offering a simple and flexible way to manage state and dependencies. Okay, as I told you already about the asynchronous code a breeze over here, you guys can see that. And also it just provide a base state management for the providers. If we talk about specifically about the provider based state management, Basically, Riverpod is built right on the top of the provider package and providing a simple and initiative way to manage state using providers, and providers can hold both the data and logic. You guys will learn about that, and it will just make it easy to access and update the state throughout our app. Basically, Riverpod just encourages a declarative and reactive programming style where changes to state automatically triggers updates to the dependent widgets. So you guys will just learn about that, and also the dependency injection, as I told you already. And Riverpod, it also supports the dependency injections, allowing you to easily just inject dependencies into your widgets and other classes. And also it just provides the scope state right in the Riverpod. It just allows you to define state within the specific scopes, such as a widget trees or let's say application wide contacts. And lastly, as I told you already about the asynchronous operations, Codebreeze, it just supports that right in the Riverpods and provides built-in support for handling asynchronous operations such as fetching data from the APIs or let's say performing background tasks. So in this project you guys will learn about the architecture, specifically about the clean and with the Riverpods, that how we will just arrange the data, the domain, and also you guys will learn how we will just arrange the providers to just get the specific required work. And lastly, we will just be working right on the presentation UI. So let's just go ahead and add that Flutter Riverpod. If you guys want to have a look, come down, read it, and I have already read that. And what I'll do, I'll just go towards installing, and we will just copy the dependency from here, Control-C, go back to the Android Studio. In here, below the GeoLocator, paste it like that, and with the proper alignment, so we will just move that to the left side like that. Okay, shift with the tab. So we just successfully add the GeoLocator and Flutter Riverpod. Now what I'll do, I'll just add the assets, and then right in here, right in the prospect.yaml, we will just add the path for that and also for the fonts. So what I'll do, I'll just get this down a little, and you guys can see that directory by the name assets over here, that folder. I'll just provide it right in the resources, and also right in the comment section down below. You guys can simply get that from there. Simply now just drag and drop this right in the clean architecture Riverpod GeoLocator and click upon that refactor. You just successfully add that right in our project. You guys can see the assets over here. There is a fonts directory, Signatra, TTF, and right after that you guys can see that icons directory over here. There we go, yeah, icon image over here. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll just go and write in the prospect.yaml, we will just add the path for that in order to just get that in our project. So in here you guys can see that, remove that from here for now, and below this edge you guys can see we will write assets over here. You guys can see that with the proper alignment. Okay, now press enter, and below the second S of asset down below in here, first we will just provide the dash over here like that, and then space below the T of asset. In here we'll say assets because it's right in the asset directory, and then if we just go towards this directory, icons directory, and then that image. So right after that we'll say slash, and then we'll say icons, and then right at end we will just add the slash. So it will just add all of the images which will be right inside the icons directory and then right in the assets. Okay, it will just add all of the images, but for now on in here it's just one image over here. Now right after that we are left with the fonts, and we have to just provide that fonts, the font specifically. We will just remove that from here. You guys can see that, and below the H over here we'll say fonts, you guys can see that, and then space below the N of fonts over here first dash, and then we'll say family over here, and then we will just give a space. We will just move that family, the F alphabet of a family, we will move it below the S of fonts over here. You guys can see that below that over here, like that. Okay, and now I'll just give the name as signature. You guys can see. Now press enter, and below the F of family we'll say fonts, you guys can see that, and then press enter again. First below the N of a fonts over here, you guys can see that first dash, and then space we'll say assets, you guys can see, and then here assets, it's right in the asset directory. And guys, the spelling must be same, otherwise it will give you error. Okay, it will not just add that in our project. Now in here assets, then slash, and fonts, it's right in the fonts directory, and then slash again, and you guys can see that specific name signature.ttf. What I'll do, I'll just go refactor, rename, copy that from here, Control C, and simply just cancel that from here. Over here paste the name, Control V. You guys can see that we just successfully add the fonts family by the name signature. Now what I'll do, we just successfully add the fonts, assets, and the dependencies over here below the Cupertino icons. And now what I'll do, I'll just click upon that pub get, it will just import it and add it in our project. Pub get, tap on that. So there we go with the exit code 0, where for that. So it's mean it is successfully added in our project. Now we'll just get this down, and we are done with the pubspec.yaml. Simply close that from here and go toward the lib. You guys can see there's man.dot over here. Now you guys can see that pubspec has been edited. So what we will do in here, get the dependencies first, wait for exit code 0. There we go, it's done. Take this down, ignore it now. Now let's move further, and right in the lib, right click, create a new directory by the name domain. Now press enter. So basically this domain layer over here, you guys can see that this layer will contains the business logic and use cases of the application. It just defines the core functionality and rules without just depending on any specific implementation details or external dependencies. Now right after that, we will create a new directory by the name data. You guys can see that specific layer by the name data. So basically this layer will be responsible for handling data access and manipulation. It just includes repositories, data sources, for example APIs and databases, and data models. So this layer will just abstract away the details of a data retrieval and storage, and then just allowing the domain layer to remain decoupled from specific data sources. Now right after that, we will create the directory by the name provider. You guys can see that providers over here. So that layer, you guys can see by the name providers. Basically these providers are objects that expose values or objects to the rest of the application, and they will be used to provide dependencies to different lines of the application, manage state and control the life cycles of the objects. And basically that providers will help achieve dependency injection and facilitate the flow of a data and dependencies throughout our application. And right after that, the last directory for our app, we will just create in here the presentation. Layer. Okay, now this specific layer, you guys can see by the name presentation, it is responsible for the user interface UI and user interaction. It will just include the UI components such as a widget, screen, and UI logic. This presentation layer interacts with the domain layer through use cases and with the data layer through data repositories. And right in the Riverpod, providers are often used in the presentation layer to manage UI state and just provide the dependencies to the UI components. So that's all for these directories, the specific layers that I told you already about. So now firstly we will start working right on our domain layer. Okay, now right click, create a new dot file by the name domain over here. You guys can see that, and with it we'll say location repository over here. Now firstly here we will just declare the abstract class over here. So what I'll do, I'll just use the abstract keyword over here, abstract, you guys can see that, and then we'll say class, and then we will give the name as location, you guys can see that over here, and then we say repository over here, and in here curly braces, take this down like that, and here we will just make the spelling right on here, just remove that S, and that's fine. So basically in here we just declare the abstract class using the keyword abstract over here, which basically means that it can be instantiated directory. Now we are about to just declare a single abstract method right in the class abstract class location repository right in there. So what I'll say, first let me just write and then I'll tell you. In here with it less and greater sign over here, and then we say position over here with it, and then what I'll do, I'll just give the name to this abstract method, which will be get current position over here with it braces, and write it and semicolon, and you guys can see that red line, tap on that position, red bulb, in here import that library for the geolocator dot. Here we go, there has been gone now. So this line of code, you guys can see that over here, as I told you already, is just declare a single abstract method by the name over here. You guys can see that get current position. It will just indicate that any concrete subclass must implement this specific method, which is get current position. And the get current position, you guys can see that method over here, it just return a future of a position which represent the current geographic position of the device. I hope it's clear. Now let's move further. We're about to just create in here the class by the name location notifier. Over here you guys can see that, which will extend the state notifier. We didn't see the suggestion, let me just write it over here. There we go, state notifier over here, grid analysis sign. Now right inside that we'll say position question mark. First let me just write that over here, and then curly braces, and tag this down. So in here we just successfully create the class by the name location notifier, which just extends the state notifier over here. It's a Riverpod utility class that provides a way to manage and notify listener of changes to a state. And in here you guys can see that position with a question mark in here. So basically this is a class provided by the geolocator package, which represents a geographic position on the Earth surface, and with it you guys can see that question mark. This question mark indicates that the position object can be nullable, meaning it can either hold a valid position instance or be null. Now right inside this class, what I'll do, we will just create a variable. We'll say final and then we'll say location. First let me just create that over here, declare it, and then I'll tell you in detail what you will do. So in here, location repository over here. You guys can see this location over here, and then we'll make that private. In here we'll say repository, and semicolon. Now let's just create a constructor for that. So we'll say location notifier over here, and then braces we'll say this dot repository, and we will say with that colon, and we'll say super, with that we'll say null, and write it and semicolon. You guys can see that. So first in here, as I told you already, we just declare a variable. So in here you guys can see that final keyword is just indicate that the variable repository can be assigned a value only once. So once something will be assigned to that specific variable by the name repository over here, you guys can see that it will not change then. And with it you guys can see that location repository is the type of the variable of this repository. It just refers to an abstract class name location repository over here. And finally, as I told you already, this is the name of the variable that we just declare over here. And you guys can see that underscore at the beginning is just indicate that it's a private variable and can only be accessed within the file where it's declared. Okay, now right after that you guys can see that location notifier, the constructor, is just take a location repository as a dependency in its constructor. The constructor initializes the notifier with an initial state. You guys can see that of null, indicated that the current position is not available initially. Now we're about to just create the method for just fetching the current position. So what I'll do in here, first I'll just gonna create this as a future type over here. First let me just create that over here, and then I'll just explain in detail each and everything. Okay, and it's gonna be one type, or return nothing, and then what I'll do, I'll just give the name as fetch over here, and then we say current geo position. In here braces, this is going to be asynchronous for future type. In here curly braces, and take this down. So now you guys can see that line of code what it will do. So basically this just defines a method that I create over here by the name fetch current geo position. It just return a future void. You guys can see that in the beginning, indicating that it's an asynchronous method that doesn't return any value immediately. And you guys can see the keyword over here, async, which means asynchronous, allows the method to use a word for the asynchronous operation. Now writing this method, first I'll just take the try block over here, curly braces, take this down, and with it in here we'll say catch, and in there if it will catch any error, then we will show that error specifically in here. First curly braces and take this down, and as I told you already, if it will catch any error, then we will just print that over here. So in here print, you guys can see, and in here string, first I'll say error colon, and let's just get this specific error. If it will catch, then we will print that over here. Let it end, semicolon, and just cut that from here, and it's going to be writing the string with it. Okay, like that. All just fine. You guys can see that if it catch any error, in here, right in the block catch, we will print that specific error. And now, right in the try block, what we will do, let's just get this down. And guys, this try block basically used to just enclose code that might throw exceptions, and you guys will notice that in a while. So the first thing that I will do, we will just create a variable, and it's going to be final type over here. We will give the name as current positions. Once something will be assigned to this variable, then that specific value will not be changed then. Now to this current position, what I'll do, I'll just assign first, let me just have that specific logic over here, get the repository, and then we'll say just get the current position and write it and semicolon. So we just successfully assigned that right in this current position. So this line of code, what it will do, let me just explain that more in detail. It just call the get current position method right on the repository object. You guys can see we are getting that from here. So in here you guys can also see that the await keyword, it just indicates that the program should wait for the get current position method over here right on the repository object method by the name get current position to complete before proceeding further. The result of this specific method call is stored right in the current position that I told you already in this specific variable. Now let's just move ahead. In here I'll just get this current position and we will just assign that to the state. So in here you guys can see that state. So this line of code, what it will do, so firstly we just assign this current position right in this state. You guys can see that, and this specific state property, you guys can see it is provided by the state notifier class and represent the current state of the notifier. In this case you guys can see the current position over here just represent the current geographic position obtained from the repository object, okay, with the method current position. You guys can see that get current position. And if any exception are thrown within the try block, the execution just jumps to the corresponding catch block. You guys can see that, and I have already explained this in detail, the catch, what it will do. So all of the working for this specific method by the name fetch current geoposition has been done completely, and this method will just successfully fetch the current geographic position using the repository object and update the state with the obtained position, and also write it and handles any error that may occur during this specific process for just getting the current position. And that's all for the specific dot file by the name domain location repository. You guys can see. Now right after that we will simply just close that directory by the name domain. We are done with that, and we will go towards data over here. Right click, create a new dot file by the name data. Instead of space we will give underscore, and in here we'll say location repository, and instead of space we will give underscore, and then we say implementation. So in here I'll just give the short name as IMPL, which will indicate the implementation. Press enter. Here we are writing the dot file for the data location repository implementation dot, and from here we will close the domain one. Now we are on the dot file and we will go towards the data location. There we go, back again. So the first thing that I will do in here, I'll just create the class. First let me just implement the class, and then I'll just explain it each and everything in detail. So in here, as I told you already, you will create the class in here, and I'll just give the name as location repository implementation, and this will extend the location repository that we just implement right in the domain. Okay, there we go. You guys can see in here curly braces and take this down. So this line of code in here, we just declare the location repository implementation class over here. You guys can see that, which will implement the location repository abstract class, and we have already completed that right in the domain, as I told you already. So basically this means that location repository implementation must provide implementation for all the methods defined right in the location repository class that we just mentioned in this specific location repository class right in the domain. Let me just show you that. That's the location repository, and you guys can see that get current position over here. Now let me just close that, the domain one. We'll go back to the data over here, back again. Now right in this class, the first thing that I will do, I'll just override the method that we will get right from the location repository that I told you already about. So in here I'll just say get current position. There you go. Let's just override it over here. So where we are, you simply just indicate that get current position method override the same method from the super class, which is location repository, as I told you already. So this is going to be a future type. So in here we'll say asynchronous, and right after that what I'll do, we will just remove that from here, remove that, and in here the first thing that I will do, we will just return in here. First let me just complete the implementation, and then I will just explain each and everything in detail. So in here return, we will say await, since it's a future type, and in here we have the asynchronous, as I told you already. So in here await, and then we say GeoLocator. You guys can see that, and then let's just call upon the get current position and write it end semicolon and take this down from here. So now in there I'll just provide the desired accuracy over here, which will be the location accuracy. We can go with the high, best for navigation, best, low, lowest, medium. You can choose whatever you want right in here, but I'll go with the high and write it and comma. So now step by step in here, this line of code, this just defines that the get current position method, which returns a future position over here, is going to future tab, as I told you already. So specifically this method is responsible for fetching the get current geographic position of a user. And now if you guys look right inside this specific method, in here we just return that await geolocator.get current position. So basically this line of code just calls the get current position method from the geolocator class. It is an asynchronous operation, and in here we mentioned that, and also in here it will wait until the actual result will come. So it's a prefix with a await to wait for the result, and right after that in there we just have this desired accuracy, this parameter specifically with a location accuracy dot high. We mentioned that over here. So this parameter will just specify the desired accuracy of the location data. In this case, you guys can see we just set that to the location accuracy dot high, indicating that high accuracy is desired. And that's all for the class by the name location repository implementation, which extends location repository, and it's right inside the data. You guys can see that over here. So basically the importance of this data lies in the fact that it's provide the concrete implementation of the location repository interface. it just interacts with the device hardware web through geolocator package to fetch the current geographic position. By separating this logic into the repository allowance, we adhere that to the specific principles of clean architecture, making the code more modular, testable, and easier to maintain. And additionally, by using this interface, which is location repository, as I told you already so many times, we can easily swap out implementation if needed, such as for testing purposes, or if we decide to use a different location provided in the future. So I hope it's clear. Now that's all for the data. Now right after that, first let me just close that from here. We are done with the data, and that's the man dot. Now we will go towards the providers. That's the directory. You guys can see provider layer. In your right click, create a new dot file by the name providers over here. So first I'll just create the instances of the location repository. First let me just complete the implementation, and then I'll just explain each and everything in detail. So in here I'll provide the final key. It's going to be non-changeable. Once something will be assigned to the location that I'm about to create over here, once something will assign to that location repository over here, then it will not change. It's going to be non-changeable. Okay, so in here we'll say location, and then I'll say repository over here, and then we say provider. You guys can see that. Now into this I'll just assign the instance. So in here first I'll say provider. You guys can see that. From now on I'll just remove that null, and what I'll do, I'll just remove that also, and in here we'll say curly braces, write it and semicolon, and take this down from here like that. And with the provider I'll just have the less sign and greater sign, and right in the middle I'll just say location repository. Okay, and in there we'll just return the location repository implementation. Just call upon that over here and write it and semicolon. Now firstly in here we just created the variable by the name location repository provider by using and declare with the keyword final over here, indicating that it's a constant and can be reassigned to another value. So once something will be assigned to this specific variable, it's going to be non-changeable. So now in this case we just assign in here and store the instance of the provider. You guys can see that location repository. So it just holds the provider responsible for providing the instances of the location repository interface. So this variable is important because it just allows other part of the application to access the provided instance of the repository. And I have already told you about it is just defined using the provider function, and which takes over here you guys can see right inside that callback function returning an instance of the location repository implementation. You guys can see that. So this provider is important because it allows the application to access a concrete implementation of the location repository interface, which is basically crucial for fetching the current geographic position. And now right after that we'll just go down, and in here first I'll create the variable. In here we'll provide the final keyword. You guys know already about that, and I'll give the name as location. You guys can see that notifier. And with it we'll say provider. Now in this specific variable First let me just provide in here I. The spelling will be good. There we go. Now into this variable I'll just assign the instance of the location notifier class. First let me just complete the implementation and then I'll just explain each and everything in detail. So in here I'll say state notifier provider over here. In here I'll just remove the null with it also, just remove that. In here curly braces, right at end semicolon, and from here we'll just take this down and write with the state notifier provider in here less sign and greater sign. You guys can see that, and right in the middle what I'll say location notifier. You guys can see that, comma, and we'll go with the position over here, ref, and now right inside this curly braces what I'll do first, I'll just create a variable. It's going to be final and we'll give the name as repository over here, and into this repository I'll just assign, first we'll say ref, in here dot watch, and here we'll just provide the provider. It's going to be the location repository provider over here, that one, okay, and write it and semicolon. You guys can see that, and lastly we'll just return the location notifier, and in here we'll just mention the repository over here and write it and semicolon, and in here with the position we'll just provide the question mark. So this just denotes that the variable can be null, meaning it can either hold a position object or to be null. So now back again, in here we successfully just create the variable, and in here we just provide the final keyword. You guys already know about that, okay, what it will do. So in this specific variable we just assign the instance of the location notifier over here. You guys can see that. So this is a state notifier provider over here that's provided the instance of the location notifier class. It just take two parameters. The state notifier takes two parameters. You guys can see that over here, the position and the location notifier over here, and this location notifier, that's the type of the state notifier being provided, and that position over here you guys can see that the type of the state managed by the notifier. It is defined using the state notifier provider function, and basically which takes a callback function returning an instance of the location notifier. You guys can see that we returned that successfully. Now right inside those curly braces, in here the first thing that I did in here, just create the variable, and in here we just provide the final keyword. So in this variable we just assign this line of code which is right inside the callback function. It just watches the location repository provider. You guys can see that with it using the ref.watch. You guys can see that over here, to obtain an instance of the location repository and then passes it to the location notifier constructor, and we just assign this line of code into this variable by the name repository. You guys can see that. So basically this provider is important because it's enable components in the application to access and interact with the state managed by the location notifier, which include the current position fetched from the repository. And that's all. And one more thing, right in the Riverpod we use that ref.watch to just read the current value of a provider and just subscribes to updates to that value. And I have already explained this in detail. We just assign this in this variable by the name repository, and we just return lastly the location notifier with this specific variable repository over here. And furthermore it will just interact with the repository, such as calling the specific method from the location repository like get current position to fetch the current geographic position of a user. And that's all for the providers. You guys can see over here we are done with that, and these providers are crucial in Riverpod based application because they just facilitate the dependency injections, allowing components to access and utilize various dependencies such as repositories, as I told you already in detail, and state notifiers without tightly just coupling them to the specific implementation. So this promotes modularity, testability, and maintainability in the code base. So that's it. I hope it's clear. So let's move further. We will close that provider first directory. We are done. That's cement.dot. Now we will go toward the presentation, the UI user interface. Over here, right click, create a new dot file by the name modify. Instead of space we will give underscore, and then we say location screen. In here we'll just create the class by the name modify. Over here, location screen, which will extend the consumer widget over here. First let me just implement that, and then I will just explain it in detail. So in here, the consumer widget over here you guys can see, and here curly braces, and take this down. Gonna have the constructor over here, the modify location screen for that over here you guys can see, and then in there let's just have the super key over here. You guys can see that, right at end, semicolon. Now in here I'll just provide the const modifier since it's a constant, and then in here I'll just override the build. So in here we'll see build contacts. There we go. You guys can see the suggestion, just override that over here, and come here, just tap in here. You guys will just notice the both, right, both over here, and import the material.dot. All just fine, you guys can see. So I have already told you about this class. We just create that modify location screen, which extends the consumer widget. So basically that consumer widget right in the Riverpod, it's a convenient Flutter widget for just building the UI components that react to changes in the state managed by the Riverpod providers, and it just automatically subscribes to changes in the provided providers, efficiently just updating the UI when the state changes to occur. And this just promotes clear separation of concerns, simplifies syntax, and integrates seamlessly with other Riverpod features, and make it a powerful tool for building scalable and maintainable Flutter application. So in here, that's why we just extend with it the consumer widget for the class modify location screen over here, and here that's the constructor as usual. And with it you guys can see we having that super keyword. It just followed by the key. You guys can see that over here to pass it to the super class constructor, which is required, and extending the consumer widget right in the Riverpod. And as usual we just override the build. Now our man work will be stored right in the widget build. And in here you guys can see that build contacts. With it you guys can see that widget ref with the ref over here. Basically right in the Flutter application, that build contacts just represent the location of the widget within the widget tree. On the other hand, you guys can see that widget ref, as I told you already, right in the Riverpod whenever we just extend the consumer widget. So in here we are having that widget ref over here. It's a Riverpod specific object that provides access to read and interact with the Riverpod providers within the widget tree, and it just allows widgets to just read, listen to, or let's say modify state provided by the Riverpod providers. So that's it. And now in here I'll just remove that comment line and this throw, and we'll just in here return the scaffold widget and write it n semicolon. Take this down. So the first thing that I will do in here, we'll just create the upper for our app. So in here I'll say app bar property, and then in here the app bar widget. Right in there first I'll just provide a title, and then we'll have the text widget over here, the braces. Take this down. Now in here string, and right inside the string what I'll do, I'll say GeoLocator over here. You guys can see that, and write it and comma. And now what I'll do, I'll just show you the result right at real time. So we have to go and open the emulator. In here you guys can see that device manager. You guys can see, open that, tap on it, and I have already just downloaded the emulator. You guys can see that. I'll just tap on this play button over here, and it will just open the emulator for me. You guys can see that connecting to the emulator. You guys can see. There we go. Now I'll just take this to the side like that, and I'll remove those zoom controls. There we go, all just fine. Finally just set up the emulator. Now I'll just come here and click upon this run man.dart. Click on this play button, run the app, and this will take a while. Just wait for it. Just running the app over here. You guys can see. So here we are with our screen, and you guys can see for now this totally empty screen. Okay, because we just didn't call upon that modify location right in the man.dart. If you go to the man.dart over here, you guys can see for now on right in the home it's just an empty scaffold. So that's why in here you guys can see that empty screen. Okay, so the first thing that I will do, I'll just remove that banner right on top right side. In here we'll say debug right in the material app, that's the team data, and in here we'll say debug show check mode banner, and we'll set this to false. And now press the Ctrl S. It's just reloading. There we go, it's gone now. And now what I'll do, right from the presentation modify location, we will copy that name, Ctrl C, and go to the man.dart over here, remove that scaffold and paste the modify location, tap on that and import that modify location library. All just good over here. Now we'll go back to the modify location screen.dart. If I just refresh the app again, auto reload it, you guys will notice the app bar. Let's say GeoLocator. Performing hard reload. Boom, there we go. You guys can see the GeoLocator app bar over here. So now we will make this more attractive. The first thing that I will do in here, we'll say style, then we say text style, and then I'll just increase the font size over here. We'll set it to 55. Now press the Ctrl S. There we go, GeoLocator, you guys can see. And now I'll just add the font family. We'll go with the signature, as I said this right in the prospect.yaml. Okay, you guys know already that signature, write it and comma, Ctrl S. There we go, it's look more attractive than before. You guys can see that. And also I'll just provide the font weight we'll go with the font weight dot bold, comma, right at end. Now Control S, it's bold now. And with this text, since it's a constant, so we have to add the constant modifier. There we go, you guys can see. Now we will just add the decoration, box decoration. In that we will just add the linear gradient color, the combination of a two color. So what I'll do, below this text over here, I'll say flexible space, and then we'll have the container widget. There we go, take this down, and then we say decoration, box decoration, brushes, take this down, we'll say gradient, and in here the widget linear gradient, brushes, you guys can see that, and in here comma, take this down from here. Now we'll just provide the colors over here, first bracket, right it and comma. Now in there the first color that we will set, we will go with the cyan, and the other color that we will choose over here, we will go with the black 45 over here. Now we'll just begin that with the alignment dot top left on the top left, and we'll just end that with a bottom right over here. It's a bottom right, and in here comma, you guys can see that. Now in here add the constant modifier since it's a constant, and press the Control S. There we go, you guys can see it's look more attractive than before. And over here below the container, I'll just set this into center, the up bar, so center title, we'll set this to true. Control S, loading, there we go, right in center now. And also I'll just add the elevation, I just set it to 30, Control S, it's really minor. So what we will do, we'll set this to 400, Control S. So there we go. It's a slight difference that you guys will notice right over here, the elevation. Okay, so that's fine, and we have successfully added the linear gradient effect over here, decoration. Now for the body, what I'll do, below the M bar, we'll say body, and then I'll take the container widget over here, take this down, and for time saving, what I'll do, I'll just copy that decoration, you guys can see, from here to here. Copy that simply, do not make any error over here, simply copy that, and in here, right in the container, right in the body over here, paste it, you guys can see, and simply just press the Control S, press it. There we go, you guys can see that for the body. And also we will just add the icon image for this app. So what I'll do, below the box decoration over here, we'll say child, and right in the center we will show that. So in here we'll take the center widget, and then child is going to be right in the columns, and here we'll take the column widget. You guys can see, first I'll just set the property main axis alignment, and we'll set this to center, so it's going to be right in the center as I told you already. In here we'll take the children, take this down, scroll down, and in here I'll just say image, we will go with the asset one, not this one. So image.asset, you guys can see the segregation over here, right, and comma, and take this down from here, first string, we'll say assets, and guys, the name must be similar, okay, the spelling must be right over here, like that, assets. So in here assets, and then right in the asset directory we'll go to the icons. So in here first slash, and then we say icons, you guys can see, then slash, the name is location.png. so in here we'll write it location.png. remember, the name must be similar, or otherwise it will give you nothing. Now in here comma, press the Control S, and let's just see, There we go. You guys can see icon image over here. Now what I'll do, I'll set the width for that, and you guys can see that it's in the center. Okay, also the height will be 300. Control S. There we go. It's look more good than before. Now right after that we will create the button. Okay, so what we will do, below this image.asset over here we'll say elevated button. We'll go with the icon one, not this one. Elevated button dot icon. There we go. This segregation, you guys can see, and tag those parameters. For now on we'll just remove that, and one by one we will add it. Okay, and right at and comma, just take this down from here. Now the first property, which will be on past click event over here, just have that in here. For now on I'll just remove this empty. Later on we will just implement the specific logic for that to just get the current geoposition of a user. For now on just leave that as it is. First we will just complete the UI design for this elevated button. So take this down, we'll say style, and then we say elevated button dot style form. Take this down from here. First I'll provide the background color for this specific button. We'll go with the green, so colors dot green. You guys can see that. Scroll down. Now right after that we will just choose the shape for that. We'll go with the rounded rectangle border, right at and comma, and take this down from here. Now in here we'll say border radius widget over here. We'll go with the dot circular, and we'll set this to 8.0. you guys can see. Now in here we'll do some padding for that, so we'll say edge insect. We'll go with the dot symmetric. In here we'll set the horizontal 20 and also the vertical 10, and right at and comma. In here we'll add the const modifier since it's a constant. You guys can see that. Okay, now below this over here we'll provide the icon. So in here icon widget icons dot, we'll go with the location underscore, let me just see, location off, location on. There we go. You guys can see that. Let's have that in here, and right after that what I'll do, I'll just set the label for that. So we'll say text, and in here string, you guys can see, right and comma, and then we say get current location. So that's it. Now what I'll do, I'll just refresh the app since we made a major change, so we have to just refresh the app or reload it. There we go. You guys can see get current position, the elevated button. For now on, if you guys just tap on that, it will do nothing, because in here we just left this on press click even empty. For now on, later on we will just implement the logic for that, and it will then just get the location. Now right after that we will just make this more attractive, get current location. So what I'll do, you guys know already, style, text style over here. Now just take this down from here. First I'll set the font weight. We'll go with the font weight dot bold, Control S, it's bold now, and also we'll just increase the size, so we'll set it to 36, Control S. There we go. Now font family, we'll go with the Signature, right and comma, Control S. There we go. It's look more attractive than before. You guys can see that. And we'll remove those yellow lines since it's a constant, so we have to add the constant modifier, and the code will be clean. There we go, you guys can see that. Now we're gonna simply just go and create a variable right inside the widget build. Over here we'll say final. You guys know already what will do this specific keyword final. Okay, once something will assign to this specific variable, it's not gonna change then. Okay, so let's just create that variable now. Location state. So now into this location state we will assign the location notifier provider. So what I'll say in here, the ref we'll get from here, from the widget ref over here, we'll say ref, and then we say dot watch from the Riverpod. We'll get that, the watch, you guys know already, and in here we'll say now the location notifier provider. So basically this line of code in here it just obtain the current state of the location notifier provider. And I have already told you about this ref. It's a widget ref. We get that from the widget ref object that allows access provider within the widget tree. And also you guys can see that watch is a method provided by the Riverpod that allows visiting the current state of provider. And finally this location notifier provider, this is the provider that provides the state related to the location. So the location state will hold the current state of the location notifier provider, and it will just represent the current location information in this context, and we just assign this into this variable as I told you already. Now let's go down. What I'll do, below this elevated button over here, I'll just take the text widget, add it and comma, take this down. So in here we'll say the location state, the variable we created above, and we'll say if that's not equal to null, then in here we'll use the conditional operator. So turn the operator over here, and if that's not equal to null, then in here this question mark first, this will indicate if. Okay, now we will show this latitude over here. You guys can see that with a colon. Now in here $sign, curly braces, and right inside that we'll say location state dot latitude. And on the flip side in here we'll say colon, this will indicate else. So if that location will be equal to null, then on the flip side in here we will just show the simple text latitude. So if it gonna contain the location state, then we will show that, and if it will not contain the location state, then we will show that text simply. You guys will notice that whenever we will just test the app. Okay, now if you guys just press the Ctrl S, we get the error, bad state, no provider scope found. So now you will go and just wrap the material app right in the main.dot with the provider scope. So whenever we use the Riverpod, the provider scope is used to just establish a scope for all the provider that is defined with it main.dot. So this ensures that the providers are available and accessible throughout the entire application. It's act as a container for all the providers, allowing them to be accessed by any widget within the widget tree. So basically this is initial for managing the state and dependencies of the application in the centralized and organized manner. So that's why in here we get that error. So we have to provide the provider scope. So there's a main.dot, you guys can see that, and that's the material app. So simply tap on this material app. You guys can see that yellow bulb, tap on it and wrap it with a widget. And here we'll say now provider scope. There we go. You guys can see the suggestion, and that's all. We successfully just add the provider scope to the material app right in the man.dot. So we have to go back to the modify location screen.dot over here. Now let's just refresh the app, auto-load it, and it will work fine this time. There we go. You guys can see over here the latitude from now on. Okay, so now we will make this more attractive. What we will do below this in here, the style, text style, brushes, take this down. First I'll increase the font size, we'll set it to 40, and right after that we'll add the font family. It will be Signature right in the string over here. We'll say Signature, write it and comma, you guys can see, and then we'll just provide the font weight. We'll go with the font weight dot bold. Now press the Ctrl S. There we go, you guys can see. So we will add a little logic over here for the color. In here, what I'll say now, we'll say color. First in here provide the comma, and then we say color over here. There we go, the suggestion. We'll say if location state, if that's not equal to, now if it will contain the location state, then in here we'll use the conditional operator, turn the operator here. This will indicate if, and we will show the color green. Okay, you guys can see if it will contain the location. And right after that, on the flip side, what I'll do, if it will not contain the location state, then we will show the color dot gray in here, comma. You guys can see that from now on, if I just run the app, you guys will notice the gray color for now, because the location state will be equal to null. So if it's equal to null, it will show that. And later on we will just implement the logic for the elevated button. So whenever the user will tap on this specific button, it will just get the latitude, and then you guys will notice the green color over here. It will just change between the green and gray. From now on it's a gray. As I told you already, the location state is null for now, and you guys can see that latitude. So we are done with this latitude, and I'll just take this down from this elevated button a bit. So what we will do in here, size box, we'll say height, let's set it to 20, edit and comma, and in here let's add the constant modifier since it's a constant. Control S. There we go. Now that's the latitude, and we have to also create the longitude. Okay, so there's the text in here. First pass the size box, and now copy that from here to here simply, and in here we will paste it, and we will make a little change over here. We will just remove that latitude and we'll say longitude. Copy that from here, in here paste it, and in here remove that latitude. We'll go with the longitude over here. You guys can see the suggestion, and all of the design will be similar. Now just press the Ctrl S, and there we go with the longitude. From now on you guys will notice the gray color because the location state is null for now. So we are done with that, and now we have to go back to the elevated button. The on press click even, it's empty for now. We will work on that for now. So now let's just go ahead from here. I'll remove that curly braces, and we'll directly just redirect this to the ref dot read. In here you guys can see, and in here we'll just provide the provider which will be the location notifier provider dot notifier. You guys can see that. So basically this line of code, what it will do, it will just retrieve the value of the provider location notifier provider. You guys can see that over here. So this value is typically the state notifier instance that manages the state related to the location, and then with it you guys can see that dot notifier over here. This just access the notifier property of the state notifier provider, which returns the underlying state notifier object. And right after that, what I'll do, you will just call upon the dot fetch current geoposition, call upon that over here. So basically by calling this specific method over here, what it will do, it will just invoke the fetch current geoposition method on the state notifier, which is basically responsible for fetching the current geoposition of the user. So overall, this line of code as a whole, this expression retrieves the state notifier managing the location state and invokes a method, as I told you already, fetch current geoposition method, okay, on it to fetch the current position of the user. So whenever the user will tap upon this specific elevated button, get current location, it will just go toward this line of code and it will do their specific work, as I told you already. It will read that. So basically that's all, and now we will just go and test the app, but before that we have to provide the permission for the location to this device emulator. Okay, what we will do, we will go towards the Android. You guys can see, we'll go to the app, src, man, and then this Android manifest.xml. Open that. In here we have to provide the permission for just accessing the file location, the Android permission. Okay, so what I'll do below that, in here, let's just take this down, and in here we'll say first, guys, in here the greater sign, less sign over here, you guys can see that. And then in there what I'll say, we'll say uses, you guys can see, we'll go with the permission. So we are working on the permission, as I told you already, uses with the permission over here. You guys can see that as it is like that. Simply follow that, okay, otherwise it will give you nothing then. So uses permission, you guys can see that, and then we say Android name, that first one, you guys can see that. So in here now we'll provide the permission, which will be this one, android.permission.access underscore find underscore location, that one. You guys can see that over here. Okay, make sure in here just put the slash with it and the error will be gone. You guys can see that. Make sure it must be like that in order to just get the acquired word successfully. So that's it, we add that successfully right in the Android manifest.xml. Close that. We'll go towards the man.dot, and that's the presentation modify location screen.dot. There we go back again. So all of the working as I told you already, and each and everything is explained in detail explanation. Okay, so we are done with that. Now what I'll do, I'll just cut the process from here, and then we have to just hot reload the app from the start, because we just add the permissions. So we have to just refresh the app from the start, cut the process, and then hot reload the app. Wait for a while, then it will add the permission into our app, and then from there you will just open the permission. You guys will notice that in a while. So that's why we have to just cut the process and hot reload the app again in order to get the app permission. So That's it. Now we have to just take this down, and you guys can see that. First we will go towards our app. That's our app. Long press, hold it, go to the app info. There we go, right in the app info. Now in here you guys can see that permission. Tap on that. Now we can simply go right over here and tap on this location and just allow only while using the app. Now allowed location, you guys can see that. Now we will go to our app. Also open the run just for making sure. Just tap on the get current location, tap on it. You guys will notice the latitude and longitude. Now I'll just go and tap on it. Boom, there we go. You guys can see the latitude and longitude. Everything is just fine, and there we go with our latitude and longitude, and that's the current user location, and everything is just fine. Running the app successfully, and there we go with the latitude right in the green color and the longitude right in the green color. If you guys just refresh the app again, you guys will notice the latitude and longitude again in gray. Okay, there we go. And if you tap on this elevated button, you guys will notice the latitude and longitude with a green color. It's working totally fine. That's the current user location. So that's all for the geolocator, and we just implement that successfully right in the clean architecture with the Riverpod, and each and every concept is explained in detail explanation. So that's it for the project. See ya.